Good evening, everyone. It is your girl, Marcy Thomas, and I am so pleased to be back with you for another episode of Live Well Sister. So if you're joining us live or if you're watching this in a replay, I just consider it an honor to be in front of you again for what's going to be a really powerful conversation. And as I had a chance to talk to our guests behind the scenes, there's some stuff that I've been doing that she wouldn't have no way of knowing that is right in alignment with her work and this book that we're going to have a chance to talk about. So I am coming to you from the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia, originally from Cleveland, Ohio, with some time in Detroit, Savannah. I've lived a whole bunch of places, y'all. One day I think I need to do a show just about all the different places that I've lived. But if you're here and you don't mind letting us know where you're joining us from, it's always good to get an idea of who's in the room. So please feel free to drop that in the chat. And also know that even though it's two of us on the screen, this is a community conversation. So you're always free to ask questions or leave comments. So tonight I am just so excited because we are going to be talking to the one and only Oneika Mays. Now, in case you're not familiar with who she is a licensed massage therapist, yoga teacher, Reiki practitioner, and mindfulness facilitator whose work is rooted in healing, compassion, and real transformation. She's been doing this work for nearly 15 years, teaching mindfulness and meditations in spaces most wellness practitioners never even step into, including jails, hospitals, and community spaces serving marginalized communities. She's worked with organizations like Liberation Prison Yoga and Transformation Yoga Project, supporting programs that have reached thousands of incarcerated folks. She also served as the first mindfulness coach at Rikers Island through New York City Health and Hospitals, where she brought meditation into one of the country's most complex jail systems, helping people reconnect with care, compassion, and their own humanity. She now serves on the board of the One Love Prison Meditation Project and leads workshops, retreats, and trainings across the country. And she is just a wonderful human being who brings a real no BS approach to this work. And tonight we're going to be talking about her beautiful new book, Sit With Me, and it's the one and only Oneika Mays. Without any further delay, let's bring her on to the screen. Welcome, Oneika.
Hi. How are you, Marcy? I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. And I was like, she's probably sitting in the back. She's just talking about me.
I love it. I'm so excited.
It's such a pleasure to have you here. And I was teasing everybody. I was teasing Oneika here. Have her here in her big fro today. I love the big fro. I'm jealous of the big fro. So it's such an honor to have you here. Well, first, I just want to congratulate you on this new, beautiful book.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a whirlwind. It's been out for 2 weeks, and I am just so thrilled that it's resonating with people. You know, you work so hard for years to get it all together, the proposal, the agent, and then shopping it. And to have it out into the world just means everything.
Yes. And it means, the reviews that I've seen, the people that I've heard talking about it, they're really excited about the book. They were excited about this conversation that you and I are having. So I just feel it's a real honor to have you here and to make time in your busy schedule for this conversation.
Thanks.
So, I gave this big glowing overview of your life, but you have done so many different things in your career journey. But as I was telling you before we came on, I just want to know a little bit about who you were, prior to some of these great things that we see you doing. But
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about Oneika. What's your story?
Yeah, I would love to tell you. So I came to like meditation and spirituality really the long way around. Had a whole other career before doing this. I spent most of my time in book retail, but then I spent a little bit of time in fitness and also telecommunications. But that is less important, I think, than my journey of getting to know myself. I grew up in a
Mhm.
predominantly white neighborhood, went to predominantly white schools, and I'm queer. And I always felt like a little bit on the outskirts of everything and a little distant and kept myself protected. Some of
Mhm.
that was just because of the world we live in. We know where we live, but
Right.
some of it was my own doing. Being so worried about being rejected, I built a wall so I wouldn't let people in, so I couldn't get hurt. So I was
Mhm.
protecting myself. And when I found meditation and yoga when I was working at Barnes and Noble, I was transformed, but I was also not ready to embrace it. And then when sort of the
Mm.
bottom of my life fell out, that's when I really stepped into the practice, and it made me more open, it made me more loving. And I was closed off before, and I would even admit like a little mean and a little distant. And it was out of protection. So I feel so grateful that that's all been pulled away. And I feel like I'm really myself more than I've ever felt.
I love that. Being able to get to a point in life where you can feel like yourself and show up as your full self, because that's something that a lot of us struggle with.
Mhm.
Trying to figure out who we are, how we want to show up, if there's anything about us that might be a little, I mean, let's face it, just being black and woman can make us different in a lot of spaces, right?
A lot of spaces. That was such a big part of it. I felt like for a long time I wasn't enough. Or if I was at a table, like a metaphorical table, I was always trying to prove myself, like I'm supposed to be here, and and really like almost doing too much
Mm-hmm.
just to prove myself. And it's wonderful now. I'm going to be 55 in May, just to feel like it's okay. Like
Right,
it's okay who I am.
right,
And I love myself enough. And there's parts of myself I don't like. And I talk about that, that I
right.
don't think we have to like every part of ourselves to love ourselves unconditionally. And that was really freeing for me once I understood that.
And that really is powerful, because a lot of us struggle with that. It takes a long time, and some people never get there, if we're
Hmm.
honest.
Yeah.
But I appreciate, and in reading the book, I appreciate the fact that you do talk through your journey. Yes, you tell us about the tools and things that have worked well for you and the people that you serve, but you also give us some insight into your journey to let us know that you just didn't land on this. Oh, I'm a yogi, and no.
Not at all. And honestly, most teachers who are meditation teachers and yoga teachers, we usually find it because a crisis has happened
Right,
and we're trying to find ourselves. And I like teachers who are still admitting that they're trying to figure out. I'm still trying to figure out. I feel
right,
like the older I get, the more questions I have than any sort
right,
of answers. And I think
right.
that's the way to be.
Right. I agree with you wholeheartedly, 'cause I got a few years on you. I will be 60 this year. So, but there are a lot of things I'm figuring out
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
It takes a while. And, to the point of something that I said earlier, because we're about to get into what the book is all about. But in your book, you said one of the things that you share a lot with people is a book that I told you I've been reading in my spare time, and that's All About Love by Bell Hooks.
All
I love
about
all the
love.
timing.
Do you see that? I
Yeah.
love that. I love that synchronicity. That book
Yes.
changed my life. That changed my life. Zammy by Audre Lorde changed my life. We were talking about Song of Solomon. Toni Morrison changed my
Mhm.
life. Books have always been a part of my world, and
Mhm.
especially books by Black women,
Yes.
because I saw myself through their stories, even if
Absolutely.
they weren't things that I experienced. And it was revelatory to be able to, be in a period when I was growing up with Toni Morrison, or Gloria Naylor is another one too. Paul
Yes.
Marshall. I mean,
Yes.
the list goes on.
Yes. Yes. And it's funny that you mentioned Gloria Naylor, because in my day job, we're working on a project for the summer, and I'm like, we need to read The Women of Brewster Place. So yeah,
Oh,
just today, I swear.
Look
So you
at
and I are
this.
like on the same. You and I.
Look at this. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yes. So, but I love the fact that you are a lover of books. Have been a lover of books. You worked in the book industry. We'll talk about that at the end.
Hmm.
But as a person who's a lover of books, who's worked, as a retailer and all that, what was it that actually led you to decide that you needed to put this book out into the world?
There were a few things. When I was volunteering as a mindfulness teacher and yoga teacher at Rikers, I used to write about my classes with folks. So I would change the names and everything, but I would give a summary because I wanted people to know what it was like inside because so many
Mm-hmm.
people didn't know. So I would write about the classes, and everybody, after I would post, say, when are you going to put this together in a book? You have to put these
Mm-hmm.
stories together in a book. And that didn't feel quite right because I didn't want to just be using other people's stories for a book.
Right.
But one of my best friends also was talking to me as I was thinking about, do I want to write about this? And she said, you used to be a retail executive and now you're a mindfulness coach at Rikers Island. Like, you've got to tell people that whole
Yeah.
story and how you
Yeah.
got there. And
Yeah.
so it made sense to put them both together. And that's how the idea for the book was born. I'm making it sound a lot shorter than it was, but there were like 4 different proposals that actually got me
Wow.
to this
Wow.
version of the book, and a lot of prayer, to be honest with
A
you.
lot of
So,
prayer. I can only imagine because this book is very different. Because
mhm,
it is part, your story. It is part talking about what happened, or your experiences working at Rikers. It is part giving us tips and tools to help us, learn how to meditate. And we're going to talk about that here for just a moment, with a very specific type of meditation that
mhm.
you lean very heavily into. So I can imagine that it was a lot, and getting it out there and making people see the value of really being able to tell this story as a Black woman. So
Hmm. It really was. I I was I got rejected like 15 times.
mm,
But that's part of the process, and I
mhm,
think
mhm.
every rejection is a step closer to, when I found my wonderful editor, Angela Guzman at HarperCollins. She was just amazing, and Harper One's been wonderful. But you have to go through that process. Rejection is a part of the process, and I'm really grateful that someone recognized, like, yeah, this is a story that, needs to be out there. And that I was able to tell it differently than your traditional mindfulness or self-help book. I'm a believer. I learned by stories. When
Yes.
teachers have told stories, that's what resonated most with me. So that's what I wanted to do.
Yes, and it's so good, so enjoyable. I read, I would say 85%, and then I listened to like the last 15%. So the audio is good too.
Thank you. I was so thrilled to be able to record the audiobook as well. That was a joy being able to do
Yes,
that.
yes, because a lot of times people don't get to do that, especially as first
Hmm.
time authors. So that's pretty powerful as well. And we get to hear your voice and all of that. So, for those who have not had a chance to read Sit With Me yet, because it's brand spanking new, 2 weeks old, give us a little synopsis of what it's about, and then, we can get into a little bit more of the meat of the book.
Yes. So Sit With Me is part memoir. It's part about my own spiritual journey and how I transformed my life when I got on a spiritual path. And I start really from working at Rikers, but then I also go into different elements of my life. A lot of times when I failed, because I believe that we learn from our mistakes. So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the story about what it was like to be the first mindfulness coach at Rikers Island Correctional Facility. I work primarily in the women's jail. That's where we launched this program. I work with an acupuncturist and a wellness coach, who are two other incredible women, and what that was like launching a program inside Rikers. And then the other story is really a field guide for people, and it's about loving kindness meditation and the principle of loving kindness. So I talk about that, and I sort of weave all of them together. So each chapter talks about an element of loving kindness, and then I relate it to a story of my own life, and then what it was like to work at Rikers, and then how you could practice that element of loving kindness.
Yes, yes, and it's so good, everyone. So I guess my next question would be: once you went on this spiritual wellness, meditation, yoga journey, you could
Mm-hmm.
have gone in a lot of different directions with it, right? So
Yeah.
what was it that inspired you to want to go into the prison system, specifically Rikers? What led you to do that? Because I mean, that's some serious work right there, Oneika.
It was it was a conversation with my cousin. I come from a family of folks who are socially active and politically active, and my grandfather was an activist and a union organizer, and he worked for the Black Panther Party as well. And my grandmother was, and my mom's politically active. And when I became a yoga teacher, I was really blessed, and I was able to teach so many classes right away, which doesn't really happen. But I was teaching
Right.
like 20, 25 classes a week when I first started.
Oh
And
wow,
because
that is a
be,
lot.
because I felt so blessed by being able to teach so much right away, I was like, I need to give back, because that wasn't something that I did a lot of in my other career. And I was like, I need to serve. Like, serving is important. And so in this conversation with my cousin, she was like, you should be teaching in a jail. Like, I don't know why you're not.
Oh wow.
And I was like, you know what, you're right. And so I went online and went yoga in jails and prisons in New York City, and found a nonprofit and started working with them, and it transformed my life.
Wow.
And as a volunteer, I wasn't getting paid, so I sort of formed my whole life to sort of fund that volunteer work. And that's when I became a massage therapist and
Hmm.
started training teachers to do the work that I was doing inside Rikers. And then also working part-time with some other nonprofits based on my own work experience before. And then I got lucky and I was asked to interview to work full time.
Wow. Wow. And it's really meaningful because it's tapping into touching a community that many people would shy away from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's, that's significant in and of itself.
Yeah. That it's interesting because I didn't even think about sort of that element, and I wonder now, and I'm even processing this out loud. I think part of it is because being Black, being queer in this body, like, it's not the same as being incarcerated. I'm not trying to minimize that
Right.
experience, but that
Right.
being othered made sense. And the first time that I walked in there, I felt like I belonged there. I talk about in the book that I didn't grow up in a religious household at all, with not a lot of spirituality, a lot of love and a lot of magic, but not spirituality. But I was always kind of a seeker. I was always questioning, like, what is God? Where is God? What's my place in the world? So I got a calling. Like, I felt like, oh, this is a calling to be here. And I felt really compelled to keep doing this work.
Hmm. And it really is because, really, anytime you decide to do something as a volunteer, I'm
Hmm.
hoping that you feel like it's a calling and you're not
Yeah.
just doing it just for the sake of doing it, but to reach out and be willing to support people that are in a space where maybe they're being forgotten,
Yep.
where maybe they're not being, well, we know they're probably not being treated well, all those sorts of things. You tap into some of those things in the book, but to say, hey, I have this, I have this thing, I have these tools that I can go in and help to support people who may or are going through the most trying time in their lives. I just
Yeah.
think that that's really meaningful and powerful, that, for you and anyone who
Hmm.
chooses to do that type of work. But I also found it really interesting is this wellness, was it the wellness center?
Yeah. Yes, we are part of a wellness program. Yep. Inside the women's jail. So, and that meant a lot to me too, to work inside the women's jail, because so many of the women inside were Black and brown.
Unfortunately, as
Unfortunately.
oftentimes is the case. But just the whole fact of having this wellness program is something to think that somebody thought, hey, what can we do to be in support of these folks in this
Hmm.
space? But then also kind of the dichotomy of that. 'Cause, okay, we're helping you on the one hand, but on the one hand, we're hurting you.
And that was my struggle, because I believe that the way that prisons are now, they shouldn't exist. And I am an abolitionist, and I've always felt that way. So it was one thing as a volunteer. When you go in like once or twice a week, you are separate from the institution. You aren't a part of it. And when I got asked to interview and then I was offered this full-time position, it was amazing. But then I had that moment like, oh, I'm going to be a part of this machine that is incarcerating my people. And how did that feel inside my body? And it was something I struggled with literally every single day going there.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it eventually became too much for me. It eventually really just broke my spirit. um, I think on a micro level, working with people individually was really powerful, and I loved
Right.
that. But I,
Right.
I, I don't think I was okay with the way that the program sort of ended up because it just became another part of being in jail.
Mhm. Mhm. And you do talk about that in the book, how
Yeah,
the struggles with it, and getting to a certain point of making different decisions. But
yeah,
I want to dive into, because I know we're going to get back to it in this conversation, but I want to dive into the type of meditation that you
hmm,
focus on, and I don't want to mispronounce it, so I'm gonna let you say what it is.
uh
But
huh,
it's inclusive love, unconditional love. It's a
yes.
very specific type of meditation.
Yes. So I taught all kinds of practices, but I'm really rooted in something called metta,
Mhm,
METTA, and it's a Pali word for loving kindness. It's another way to say love, and it's a love that's like agape love. It's that all inclusive, unconditional love that you don't need to do anything to earn it. And we talk about it's a Buddhist concept, and we talk about it. A lot of teachers compare it to like the sun shining down on you, like it, you don't
mhm,
have to do anything to deserve that. It just is there. And the beauty about metta as a principle is that it starts with you. You start with yourself, but then it expands and gets larger. So you start to
mhm,
include other people in your circle, like a loved one. And then you include a neutral person or a familiar stranger, and then a difficult person. And then all sentient beings get included in that love. And you offer it with phrases. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. And may I live with ease.
and that is so powerful to me. It's simple, but it's not, number one. It's simple because it's just those four phrases, but it really isn't, because the book is called Sit With Me, right? So sometimes the me you're sitting with is yourself.
That's it.
That's what you
Hey.
start with, and then you move out from there.
Mm-hmm.
But to and I'm going to start incorporating it, because something I didn't tell you, I'll say this and then we'll move on. Something I didn't tell you before we came on. I swear this book is serendipitous, because I was just last week, or actually early this week, I was thinking about, again, some projects and things that I want to work on. And, admittedly, I do use chat just to talk through some
Yep.
things. And Chat GPT was like, well, how do you want, this to show up in the world? Or what do you want this to look like? And I said, I want it to feel like love.
Oh,
I swear, I'm not
look
lying.
at that.
So when I was like, and I'm like, wait a minute. Oneika.
We were supposed to have this conversation.
And this week, because I mean, this was this week, right?
This is, I love it. I love it.
Yes, but I mean, but just to think, to sit and say, may, when you start yourself, may I be safe.
Mm-hmm.
How many of us don't feel safe for a
Yeah.
variety of reasons?
Yep. Yep. And I talk about, I don't believe in safe spaces, and, I specifically mentioned that I used to come home and feel safe. And then Breonna Taylor was executed. And it's like, you think your home is your safe place. And the safe place that we're really looking for is the safety inside ourselves
Mhm,
and the safety in here. And we're often just looking out there for stuff. We're like looking out there for
mhm,
safety and validation and for all of the things. But with
mhm.
metta, this unconditional friendliness, you don't even have to like everything that's going on with you
Right.
to love yourself completely, but you've got to start here.
Got to start here. So, starting, may I, because we're starting for self, right? May I
Mm-hmm,
be happy.
mm-hmm,
Some people don't even know what it means to be
mm-hmm.
happy.
And that's the whole thing. You're wishing people happiness and you start it with yourself. So it's even just like a gesture that you're offering yourself. It's even the intention of trying it, even if you don't feel it. And you just keep practicing. You keep practicing and you do the meditation as a practice. So when life comes at you and then you realize, oh, I didn't talk to myself badly the way that I normally do. You don't even have to look for big things to celebrate. It's the little things. I was kind to myself when I looked in the mirror for a moment. That's it. And we grow so much from that. And I think especially we need to remember that we as Black women are always giving and nurturing out there. And so to be able to give yourself this small gift of saying, may I be happy, may I be safe, it can be absolutely transformative.
The next, may I be healthy.
May I be healthy. And we're not just talking about food, right? What does health look like for us? The
Right.
conversations that we're having with ourselves and with other people, health in terms of sleep and rest, health in terms of just how do I want to take care of myself in this moment? And do I have access to that? How am I making myself feel? What do I feel? So health in all of its kinds of forms.
And that just hit me. Another thing, last week I went to a new Black lady doctor and we're getting all the tests. So, because I want to be healthy.
You want to be healthy.
I can build that thing that looks like love, right?
Right. Right.
So, yeah. Yeah, we're going to be besties after this. Okay.
I know. I told you I was looking forward to this all week. I was so excited.
So, Oneika done read me and don't even know me. Okay. Next, may you be free. Now, that's huge.
Huge. May you be free. Free inside here, right? And I was afraid to teach that phrase when I was first teaching at Rikers. I was even afraid to teach metta inside because I thought, is this going to make people feel a certain way? And I realized it wasn't about me. I shouldn't be gatekeeping this information. Let people decide whether they want to embrace it or not. People have agency. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about freedom. Do I have agency over myself? And can I find freedom within myself? And can I wish that for other people?
Yes, yes. Because as we said, it starts with us. But you also mentioned that there are like some things that sometimes can get in the way just with this within ourselves. Shame, judgment, guilt are things that sometimes can get away just within ourselves.
Yeah. Shame was a big part of my story, and shame still arises for me all the time. I just have a different response to it. And I think that was the beauty about this practice. I'd spent lots of time in therapy and lots of practices, but metta allowed me to really love myself deeply in a way that I didn't even know was possible because I was the one doing it and I was the one who could always love myself. And that really became amazing. I used to do so many things just to avoid feeling shame. I mean, the bad decisions that I have made trying to avoid shame, I mean, that's a whole nother book.
Right.
But it's so important that we are okay knowing that we have shame, that we have judgment, and that we also have guilt. Judgment's another big thing that I work on. But it's our relationship with it. It's usually around the stories that we have around those feelings of judgment and shame that get in the way. And that's what metta is really about. It's not just about the love. It's about what stops us from loving ourselves and other people. That's the real work. That gap between you and the love that it's on the other side, that's what you're really working on.
And what's so powerful about this concept really is that learning this, and we're going to move on to the other aspects of it as well, but learning this about love and leaning into love, and especially in a time in history where so much is not about love. It's not all about love. It's all about some other stuff. So, to really like sit with ourselves and start this process and then expand it outward. This is, I know you said it took a while, but this book is right on time, Oneika.
It's really powerful because there's so much going on. It can get very easy to get caught up in the hate. I don't mean the anger. The anger is useful. Anger is powerful. Metta is not pretending that other things aren't going on. It's actually making space for everything, but not being consumed by hate, right? Metta is said to be an antidote to hate and fear. And so we can make great change, and we can even fight against things that are hurting us with
Mhm.
love. And that is
Mhm.
a very different place to come from than fighting with hate. And
Mhm.
that shifted in me. I talk about like when I really was like separating from white supremacy, and what that was, how that was impacting my life, and feeling afraid because I was used to fighting, used to pushing
Right.
back. What would
Mhm.
it be if I let that go? Who would I be if I let
Mhm.
that go?
Mhm. Mhm. It's really powerful. So we start with ourselves, and
Hmm.
then we move to a loved one, and we say the same things. Except it's you in this case. May you be safe. May you be
Hmm.
happy. May you be healthy. May you be free.
Hmm.
You do mention like maybe starting with a child.
A
You know,
child, and someone you have an easy relationship
right? An
with.
easy relationship with.
That's the key, right? Our lives are complicated enough. We don't need to make this harder than it has to
Right.
be. So you
Right.
start with something easy. You can start with, do you have like a pet? You can start with a pet. That can also be a powerful thing. And once you feel, you want to feel how much you love them before you offer
Mhm.
the phrases. And if that's hard to access, you can think about a time when they were celebrating something, or a
Mhm.
time when they were even suffering and needed love. And from that feeling,
Okay, everybody, we're back. We had a little technical difficulty, so I'm hoping that yeah, everybody's still there. Sorry about that, everybody. We had a brief little glitch, so, but we're back. But Oneika was just saying, we start with the easy relationship. We start with, the person that, maybe there's not a lot of difficulty or challenge
yep,
with, and learning how to love. In that particular instance, it's easy to kind of learn how to now move from just within to start to move with, outside of ourselves.
exactly.
So up next, we have the familiar stranger, which I thought was an interesting concept.
This is my favorite part of the practice, and it was the hardest part of the practice for me. So the familiar stranger, it's also called the neutral person. So it's someone you don't really have a connection with. It's someone you don't know really well. It could be somebody that is your neighbor who you don't have a relationship with, or somebody that you see regularly. And it's important to remember this phrase that we often say, just like me.
Mm,
Just like me, this person is trying to do the best that they can.
right.
Just like me, this person celebrates things. Just like me, this person has, sadness in their life. Just like me, this person is just trying to get up and do the right thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
then from that place, then you offer the same phrases to the familiar stranger. I found it really challenging to
Mm,
cultivate and like stir up love for a stranger. And once I did that, my whole world got really big, because then it seemed like the whole world was my family.
right.
Once you
Right.
start to think about strangers or being close to you.
Right. And, when you're saying love, I guess we'd have to clarify that doesn't mean affection, where you're running up
Right,
and grabbing and hugging and kissing on people. It
right.
doesn't mean that, but just, humanity.
Yes. It's a sense of ease,
Mhm.
and some people, because a lot of people, I love that you just brought that up, because a lot of people, when they hear loving kindness, they're like, well, I don't want to love everybody. We're not talking about like romantic love. We're talking about love in a way that's friendly, that's easy, that centers just unconditional, this idea that I want you to be able to live your life on your terms. I
Mhm.
want you to be happy. And then we want that for technically for all sentient beings.
Right.
So for animals, for plants, for the earth, just allowing everybody to live their lives without any conditions around them.
And
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
that's really important because the reality of it is that a lot of times if someone isn't thinking like we're thinking or behaving in the way that we think that they should behave. There's an example that you like given in the book of being on the subway and seeing, somebody going through some changes and you're kind of giving them the side eye, in that moment, but then thinking, oh, well, wait a minute, but they're human,
yeah.
just like I am, and I want good things for them and their life and their being the same way I would want them for myself.
Hmm. That's, I really tried to highlight in the book times when I fell down in the practice and when I fall down in life. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
people think that you're a meditation teacher and somehow, you're living a different life than other people, but you're not. You're just trying. I'm just trying. And so when I made mistakes and when I make mistakes, having that friendliness for myself helps me take accountability quicker when I've messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it also allows me to not attach to that energy if somebody causes me harm. It's not that I allow people to be okay causing harm, but I don't
Right.
hold on to the hatred the way that I used to. I used to really hold on to stuff
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
way too long.
Right. And, again, this doesn't mean, that everything is lovey dovey, or,
No.
there are times where you might have to, not be in certain situations anymore if they're not, the right, healthy for you. It doesn't mean you stop having boundaries, that it's just free for all. It doesn't mean any of those things. But, it's kind of like sometimes you hear your parents or your grandparents say, love people from afar.
Yes. Yes. And metta is not allowing people to do whatever they want. And in fact, if you really are embracing metta, it makes you an activist in some ways because you won't allow somebody to cause you harm because you love yourself as much as you love other people. So you matter as much as other people do. So if somebody is causing you harm, if you love yourself, it's your obligation to yourself to
Mm-hmm.
put down a boundary. So it's really just the opposite. Metta
Mm-hmm.
allowed me to really root into myself. And when I was at Rikers, there was a time where somebody wasn't honoring my boundaries who I was working with.
Right.
And I was like,
Right.
I can't work with you anymore until you honor our boundary. And she was really upset. And she was like, you're just not going to see me anymore. And I said, it's so important for me to want to model for you what it looks like to have a boundary because I want you to appreciate what boundaries are for you so you
Mm.
honor them for yourself. We
Mm.
eventually started working together again, but I mean, if we don't honor our own boundaries, how is anybody else going to do that for us?
That's so powerful to think about that. Honoring yourself, helping them learn how to honor themselves and honor you in the process. That means a lot. And then next we have the difficult person.
The difficult person. So it's traditionally also called the enemy, and which can
Mm-hmm.
really feel really heavy for people. So difficult person's nice, but when we do this meditation and we're offering phrases for the difficult person, it is imperative not to use the most difficult person in your life,
Right.
not the person who's caused you the most harm. You want to start with someone who just got on your nerves, someone who might have irritated you. You're not,
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit. And you start small and you go from there. And even if you feel that irritation, you still go with the phrases because you're
Mm-hmm.
separating yourself from the feeling that you have around it,
Right.
not being okay with what someone did. There's a
Right.
very big difference there.
Right. Right. Because that saying that you can't control what other people do, but you control how you respond to what they
Ex-
do.
that's it. That's it. I used to
Mm-hmm.
be very reactive.
Mm-hmm.
Embracing a mindfulness practice, embracing metta helped me start responding to life.
Mm-hmm.
And metta isn't necessarily about feeling in love. It is
Right.
about feeling at ease with what's happening. I say a lot, I don't meditate to feel great. I meditate to be with whatever is happening in the moment.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to putting this up real quick because somebody sent me an email saying they were having trouble posting a comment. So try it again and see if it works. Because as you saw, we did have that little system glitch. So
Yep.
try again and see if you can, do a comment. And if not, I will let the platform know that everything wasn't working properly today. So thank you for sending me the message. So yeah, I mean that it is something like to be able to deal with people who are difficult and learn how to navigate that, because I mean we can walk around, we can have an attitude, I mean there's all kinds of ways that we may end up dealing with someone that we see as being just a little difficult.
hmm
So I guess to start, well, not start there, but get to that point where you can do that, because it's important.
You don't have to like people to love them.
You don't have to like them to love them. Got that
You
right.
You don't. If I learned anything at Rikers, I learned that. And that lesson changed my entire life. It changed
Mm-hmm.
my entire life. I worked with a lot of people who I know didn't like me, and I didn't like them. And it was okay. It didn't mean that
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't wish the best for them. And we had to work together and have a working
Mm-hmm.
relationship. There are people who I work with who are incarcerated who I didn't like, and I know didn't like me either. And that's okay too. It doesn't
Right.
mean that you don't have to love people because of it. And in fact,
Mm-hmm.
it frees you up. We're so obsessed with like being liked, chasing likes, all of these things like on social media and, you
Mm-hmm.
know, having to be in agreement with people all the time. We've lost nuance and all of these things. But if we just say, like, I can unconditionally love people, but it doesn't mean that I have to like them. You take
Mm-hmm.
your, I mean, you are really stepping into a different way of being.
Right. Right. And as you said that, I was thinking, and you do touch on it a little bit about political climate,
Mm,
without getting too deep off into that. But sometimes we are in situations where we have to be in community with people who politically may be very different,
yep.
have very different ideas about things.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean you don't have to agree with them. You don't even have to like them, but it's still you can still want them to be safe. You can still want them to be happy. You can still want
Yeah.
them to be happy, healthy. You can still want them to be free, but not at the expense of you, though.
And that's it. And you don't even, you can actively fight against people who you don't agree with. Because if people who are causing harm are healed and not causing harm, we're all better off. So we want to wish that for everybody. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you're healed, we're going to be better off. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where the place where it comes from. And there's that great Audre Lorde quote: "You can't dismantle the tools, but the master. You can't dismantle the master's house with the master's tools."
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much hate that's operating in the world that we
Right.
need to come at it from a different place. And love can be a very, very powerful place to come from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It definitely can. Just to walk through the world with a different mindset. And
Mm-hmm.
kind of back to what we were talking about earlier, like the judgment that we have towards ourselves, it
Yeah.
also extends out because if you're not operating from a place of love, and I mean, again, doesn't mean agreement, doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean any of those things, but to say, hey, I might not agree with that, I might not even like that, but I have enough love for that person as a human being that they can, whatever, if they're happy, if they're living the life that they want to live, they're not doing undue harm, all
That.
those sorts of things.
Yep. Harm. And instead of judging, because I used to be and still can be like an Olympic
Well, we
level
judge.
judger. Yeah.
We judge.
Gonna be a lifelong lesson for me. Way too skilled at it. But instead of judgment, if we start thinking about things in terms of harm and less harm, that takes judgment out of it because, especially at a place like Rikers, there were good people and bad. Everything was labeled good,
Mhm,
bad. This person's terrible. This person isn't. And good and bad is very relative depending upon your
mhm,
situation.
mhm,
We don't know any of the things that we're capable of if we're placed in a certain situation. So how can I cause the least amount of harm in the world? That's the question that I ask myself.
mhm,
How can I show up and not cause harm rather than say, I want to be a good person. I want to be a kind person, but I'm not big on respectability politics. So this isn't about like trying to be a respectable person. Can I be a kind person? Can I
mhm.
can I move from that place is where I try to, you know, that's where I operate.
Right. And we did get a comment that came through. So, okay, maybe it's working now. Yay. That's why I'm like, oh, let me put that up. But yes, to be a kind person,
Mhm.
and I think not always to assume the worst of others,
Mhm.
to not always, what should I say, because someone is different or shows
Yep.
up differently, that, oh, well, they're not worthy of this type of
Mhm.
thing. Because I have felt for a long time that a lot of times a person who takes that stance, there's something within them that they don't
Mhm.
feel worthy, so they're projecting.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a difference between being nice and being kind.
Mm-hmm.
There's there's that polite, niceness that isn't really coming from kindness,
Mm-hmm.
right? But kindness doesn't have to be dressed up. You
Right.
know, kindness can be very real if you're moving from, a place of unconditional friendliness.
Mm-hmm. Unconditional friendliness.
Yeah.
So, I know you are not a therapist, right?
I
But
am not.
what do you say to the person who maybe is a an introvert and doesn't like
Mhm.
and struggles just with being, open towards other people in
Mhm.
general? Is that something that you ever like encounter in your work with people just kind of like, so
Yeah.
it's hard for them to even consider it because they just like, I don't do people type of situation.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually an introvert, believe it or not. I masked so long on my life to be an extrovert, but I am truly an introvert. And this practice isn't about forcing yourself out there to be with people. It's
Mm-hmm.
really a practice that you're doing internally. Because the real
Right.
spoiler is this is really about
It's
us. We're
about
real.
us.
We're,
Right.
we're really just cultivating it for ourselves, but by embracing the world in the process, we're actually opening up to ourselves because
Right.
there's parts of ourselves that we love. There's parts of ourselves that we don't know really well. And there's parts
Mm-hmm.
of ourselves that are difficult. And so then
Mm-hmm.
we do that. And then we get to like wishing it for all beings everywhere.
Everybody. Mm-hmm.
That includes ourself. And so we're able to hold ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
you can be shy, you can be an introvert and sort of do this practice. My teacher, when I studied metta, because like I did a study and a certification in metta, one of the practices that she gave us for the familiar stranger was to
Mm-hmm.
just go throughout our day and just silently offer the phrases to people that you didn't know. So somebody would
Mm-hmm.
walk by, you'd be like, may you be safe. Somebody walk by, may you be happy. Somebody walk by, may you be healthy. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can do this practice and nobody even knows that you're doing it. And it
Right.
still can be really transformative.
I love that. I love that. So, in working with your people at Rikers, how did it resonate with them?
Mhm. It varied. I had some people who loved it right away. I had some people who would come once and then not like it and not come back, and that's okay
Mm-hmm.
too. And in
Mm-hmm.
fact, when people would work with me, so I had my own office. It was like having my own mindfulness practice because I saw people one on one. The program got so popular, I had a waiting list, so I couldn't
All
even
right.
see everybody who was signed up for mindfulness. And we would meet and we would have like an introductory session and talk about insomnia, body issues, and anxiety, and really talk about, okay, we'll come up with a plan. And some people loved it. I would
Mm-hmm.
love when people though would say, I don't like that, because
Mm-hmm.
it's good to know what you don't like as much as what
Right.
you do like.
Right.
And knowing that you don't like somebody, like something, is a closer step to agency for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
would say, okay, let's try something else.
Something else.
Yeah. And people would come see me sometimes, like before court or after court, or just come see me regularly. So
Mm-hmm.
it was really powerful.
Hmm. One of the things in the book that you talked about,
Mhm.
which once I thought about it, it wasn't surprising, but I found it interesting that you said that a lot of times people were coming to you because they struggle with sleep, which
Yeah.
kind of sort of makes sense once I thought about it. It's like, yeah, they're not just laying up chilling for 12 hours and it's quiet and they got on their mask and sleep mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rikers has dorms and cells,
Mm-hmm.
and most of the jail was dorms. So you're talking about, up to 40 people in a dorm area, and the lights never go completely off.
Mm-hmm.
And that wreaks havoc on your body, not being able to sleep in the dark. And additionally, from just the stress of being incarcerated, missing your kids, missing your family, losing your job potentially, and then worried about like how you're going to pay bills and how rent's going to be paid. And then the noise,
Mm-hmm.
jail is very noisy. And then people are stressed out at night too. So people get upset and people can't sleep. So they're talking or yelling or not sleeping. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's really hard to get sleep.
Mm. Yeah, but once I read it again, I had never thought about it. I said, yeah, that makes sense. I can't imagine that they're just chilling.
Yeah. Yeah,
In
and
this
just the
place.
stress of, jail is where you wait until you await trial. So Rikers is a jail. So most of the people on Rikers Island haven't been convicted of anything. They're awaiting trial.
Mm.
So that limbo space that you are in,
Well, that's something in and of itself.
your whole life is in limbo and you don't know what's going to happen. That we all feel unsure, like if we're on unsteady ground. So imagine being on unsteady ground and you're not even in your home.
Mm.
You're someplace where, and you don't know anybody.
Hmm. Yeah, that's something. So we started out kind of talking about you. We talked about what led you to the work. We talked about some of what the work is. And of course, this meditation practice, meditation, mindfulness, there's also yoga
Hmm.
that as a yoga practitioner. I know some people struggle with yoga. I have struggled with yoga, but how for people who were in this space
Hmm.
specifically, since is where a lot of your work has been, how has like really learning to move within their bodies, how does that kind of work in tandem with the whole mind body connection?
It was This was one of my favorite things to do with people when they would want to actually practice yoga, because I had a 6 by 6 foot yoga mat in my office.
Mm-hmm.
So most of my office was taken up by the yoga mat, which
I love
people
that.
just love because the beds are so uncomfortable. So everybody would come in and sort of just plop down on the floor because I
Mm-hmm.
had like a yoga bolster and yoga mat, so it was comfortable, and I had like a tapestry on the wall. And when people can get inside their body, um, you can start to respond instead of reacting to the environment. So sometimes yoga would just look like putting our legs up against the wall
Mm-hmm.
and resting. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what it would be, or just laying on our backs, or just sitting and moving our arms from side to side, or turning your head from side to side. It was just this idea of saying, I'm here, because it is really easy to want to disappear and just associate at a place like Rikers, but it's so
Mm-hmm.
important that we are where our body is.
Yeah.
There is a meditation teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, a monk, who used to say that you need to be where your body is.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be afraid to talk about that, but it was so important. Like, I know you don't want to be here, but you are here. So let's figure out how you can be here and feel as whole as you can with this experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good. And I don't know if you saw that comment or not. I put it back for you. We love yoga.
Oh, thank
I'm,
you.
I'm assuming that's somebody who knows you. I don't know. Pam.
Oh,
But
Pam. Yes, I do know Pam. Hi, Pam.
yes, I just think I think these different modalities are just important because we can pray. There are a lot of different ways that we can get the support we need in life,
Yes.
and to think about love, loving kindness towards ourselves, towards others, all those different things. So I really, because the words themselves are simple. Again, it might not be as simple in practice, but
Uh-huh.
just be able to say it and to think about that and to, affirm yourself and really even to think about what I'm talking about with the inner work. Think
Mm-hmm.
about what these terms mean. What does safe? What does it mean to be safe? What does it mean to be happy? What does it mean to be healthy? What does it mean to be free? And defining those things for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. That's the practice. And I mentioned earlier, there's so often we try to go out there to find answers, and we buy stuff or we do all of these things, and we think that it has to be some sort of huge ritual, or we have to have fancy clothes to do all of these things to take care of ourselves. But taking care of ourselves just starts with inside, and just recognizing that we belong to take care, and we're worthy of taking care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it starts. I am worthy of saying, I love you to myself. I
Right.
am worthy of rest. I'm worthy of my own attention.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. I am worthy of my own attention. Now that'll preach right there. I am worthy of my own attention. Again. That's one of the things I have been personally sitting with, is
Mm-hmm.
that there have maybe been ways that I have not paid enough attention to myself as I need to. So henceforth, why I'm thinking about building something with love, why I'm going to the doctor, why I'm reading your book and all about love and all these different things, because I realize that there are things within myself. We are all works in progress or
Mm,
process. No matter how old we get, it's never too late to figure certain things out.
mm,
And this is, another tool to put in the tool belt to help people kind of navigate some of these concepts that sometimes can seem kind of difficult. Because,
mm-hmm.
people all love, but you throw love around like, but what does it really mean, right?
Right. That's the people say love all of the time. I say love a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
again, it's about what stops you from loving. And that's not what people really want to talk about. But that's the work. That's what loving
Absolutely.
kindness is about. What stops us and what gets in the way.
What gets in the way? And I haven't, you got a few extra minutes?
I do.
Okay. I love the fact in the book that you mentioned a song that kind of talks about love. Is Stevie Wonder's "As," and after I put up the post, I'm like, oh man, I should have used Stevie Wonder. But yeah, but that song, Stevie Wonder's "As," that song really talks about loving kindness, and I had never thought of it that way. So when I
Isn't
listen
it?
to it, I'm going to listen to it differently going forward.
It really is all about love and
Mm-hmm.
unconditional love. I mean, and he even talks about nature. He talks about
Mm-hmm.
Mother Nature. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's uh, that song, when I started practicing metta and I heard that and I heard it differently, I was like, oh, Stevie's talking about unconditional love here. Like,
Yes.
this is love. This is agape love. This is metta. This is what it's all about.
Yes, well, we know, see, Stevie, he's the man. So, like, protect Stevie at all costs. Oh, let's see here. We got another comment. Oh, yeah, yes, when she mentioned "As I Was Done." Yes, because that's the jam. That's the song.
It
So,
really
those of
is.
you all who aren't familiar with, well, everybody that's watching this should be familiar with it. My people, y'all should know. But, but if you're not, go ahead and listen to that song and like listen to it with a different ear and think about what it really means. As
Mhm.
around the sun, the earth knows she's revolving, and so on and so forth, and so on.
Ah,
But yes, that's a beautiful song. So I do, because you are someone who worked in the book retail space for many, many moons,
mhm.
and you are now out here in the world with your first book that we're able to see. I just, let's talk about the book world a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and it's no secret you work for Barnes and Noble. You
Yep.
are a high level manager, executive within the business. How do you see the business has changed in the years that you've been out, specifically as it pertains to like Black authors and being
Mhm.
able to see us in those spaces?
I am so thrilled that self-publishing has become as popular as it is, because I think that was a real way to break down some of the gatekeeping around publishing.
Mm-hmm.
And when Black authors weren't getting published, and then being saying, you know what, I'm going to do it myself, because a long time ago, publishing on your own was poo-pooed. Like,
Right.
it was seen as not acceptable. But it's a lot of Black authors who actually paved the way for self-publishing, and that doesn't get discussed enough. What Zane
Mm-hmm.
did for self-publishing.
Mm-hmm.
I think Elin Harris's first book too, if I think I might have that right. But there are a few big authors who first self-published and then got picked up by traditional publishers. And I am so grateful that I worked in the business to see so many popular authors. But and the landscape of publishing has changed, and it's leveled a bit. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that's been really helpful for us. But there's so many authors out there who do incredible job marketing themselves, that
Mm-hmm.
it's made the publishing world notice and
Right.
take self-publishing seriously. And I think that's an important conversation, and supporting Black bookstores.
Mm-hmm.
And You know,
Definitely.
with the decline of the superstores, there's a new rise with black
Mhm.
bookstores and independent bookstores, and I think that that's something that we have to continue to cherish.
Absolutely, absolutely that. And so, because you are on the other side this time, how did it feel different?
It was terrifying to be on the other
Yeah,
side. You know,
yeah.
it really was. You know, it took me a long time to get my proposal right. Like I mentioned before we before we were live that I wrote four different proposals.
Hmm.
And even when I settled on the fourth one, it got rejected 15 times. And then I had this moment, I was in meditation and I had this moment that I needed to change it. And I did. And then that's when I got an offer. But it's very different. It's a lot scarier. You feel the pressure.
Hmm.
Um, but I learned so much about myself going through this process and how to celebrate myself along every step of the
I love
process.
that part right there.
Yeah, because if I didn't get a traditional book deal, I would have published this myself because
Hmm.
this was a book I wanted to write. This was a story I wanted to tell. And I'm grateful for so many of the incredible Black self-published authors who paved the way
Hmm.
to say like this is valid, this is real, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yes, and we are so grateful that you have put Sit With Me out into the world. Everybody, if you haven't had a chance to pick it up and read it, and I mentioned earlier on, you if you didn't catch it, it is on the audio as well. So, what was that process like for you doing the audio?
Oh, it was amazing. I had such a good time. I was fortunate enough that I've recorded some meditations for some yoga
Oh, okay,
platforms,
okay, okay.
but sitting and reading your whole book out loud, and there were some emotional parts in it for me,
Mm-hmm.
and that I didn't think were going to since I had already written through, I thought some of the emotions. So reading it out loud, it was a whole different way to engage with the book.
Yes, that is wonderful. I appreciate it. I told you, say now we're besties because you read me from Jersey down here in Atlanta. So as I'm reading, I'm just like,
I love
this is the stuff that I didn't have metta, but now I do.
it.
But these
Hmm.
are a lot of things that I've been thinking about just in my own life. So it's like, wow, and the thing of it is, I'm gonna let y'all know, and Oneika knows this. When people come on, it's just like what date's available. It's not like I plan it. It's not like it's none of
Yep.
that. It's just so things, and this happens a lot actually, where things tend to fall exactly where they need to be in the in the week or the day that I'm having the conversation. So I'm really so excited about this, Oneika. I'm excited for everybody to get a copy of Sit With Me. Either listen to it or pick up a copy. We were talking about bookstores. There is a Brown Girl Collective bookstore. It's a part of Bookshop. So if you shop on Bookshop, you can go there and you will find this book, near the top of the page. If you haven't gotten a copy yet and be interested in doing that, it does help support the work that I'm doing here. So if you appreciate these conversations, always feel free. And there are books with people that I've talked to and a whole bunch of other books too. It's not just the people that I talk to because I would be doing this all day if I talked to everybody, right? But yes, I definitely encourage you to pick up a copy of the book. So, Oneika, I know the book has only been out for a couple of weeks. Are there
Yes.
any places that you're going to be going, or ways that people can come out and see you? Maybe
Yep.
ask you questions in person, get books signed, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I'm going to be, if you're in New York, I'm going to be at a place called New York Insight. It's a meditation center. I'm doing a half day retreat. So I'm doing that on Saturday. I'll be doing a books and brunch tea with an
Mhm.
organization called Tilt in Montclair on March 29th. And that's in New Jersey. I will be in Connecticut on March 30th and doing a signing at a bookstore, RJ Julia's, and I'll be in conversation with an amazing storyteller named Denise Page. And I'll be in Savannah on April 16th at
Okay.
the Learning Center.
Yes, yes. We were talking about Savannah before. I was actually in Savannah a couple weeks ago, so for a book event. So yeah, I love that. I love that. So thank you so much again, Oneika, for being here. I'm gonna let you grab a sip of water. I'm gonna tell everybody who's coming next
Wonderful.
week, but don't hang up just yet so I can, we can make sure that we stay in touch and all that. But I'll see you in just a moment. And thanks again for
You
being
are a
here.
blessing. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Yes, thank you everyone for being here. And I'm so happy that Oneika made it here. I'm happy that we made it through the little system glitch because I'm like, what's happening? What's happening with it? I'm glad that we were able to work through that you were able to leave comments and all those beautiful sorts of things. So thank you so much, as always, for being here. But just by means of announcements, I'm not going to hold you because we're already a couple minutes beyond 9. Next week, we will have Jamila Lemieux to talk about Black single mother. Real life tales of longing and belonging. And many of you are familiar with her. So come on back and join us next week for this conversation where we're going to talk about her life and the lives of Black single mothers and the power of Black single mothers. So that's all I have for now. I look forward to seeing you again real soon. And in the meantime, in between time, please continue to live well. Take good care. Bye.